Imagine not knowing what your income would be each week. Financial planning would be a nightmare. Almost 90% of Vision's income is free will donations. When supporters commit to monthly giving, it provides greater certainty when budgeting for regular expenses and weighing up new opportunities that arise. Knowing we can rely on regular gifts each month takes some of the guesswork out of operating a faith ministry. Monthly givers who share our mission are called Visionary Extra Mile Partners. And right now, you're invited to join this growing group of faithful supporters. The amount of your tax-deductible monthly gift is completely up to you. What is most important is knowing that you are standing with us to reach Australia for the gospel. Click the banner at vision.org.au or in the Vision app to find out more about becoming a Visionary Extra Mile Partner. It only takes a few minutes, but will have an eternal impact. Vision.
A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
As you know, Tasmania is off to the polls this weekend, and 2020 will be coming to you live from Hobart on Friday with an election preview. We'll be broadcasting from St David's Cathedral, one of the most historic churches in Tasmania. And we'll welcome a panel of election commentators bringing insights into the unfolding election. Well, some insights today from Mark Brown, who is a former Australian Christian Lobby State Director for Tasmania. But this week, he is standing as an independent in the seat of Bass. Bass is on the northeast coastal region of Tasmania. Mark Brown, a special welcome along to 2020.
Thank you, Neil. It's great to be here.
Mark, a snap election in Tasmania. Do you think the snap election took most Tasmanians by surprise?
I don't think so, Neil. I think people saw it coming a fair way off, simply because they could see that the two Liberals who went into the Independent space were putting pressure on the government, and it was looking at over a number of months as though that relationship wasn't going to last. So I don't think it was completely unexpected, but I think a lot of people are very glad, to be honest, that it's a short run up to the election, because as we know, it's very easy to get overawed with it all very quickly. And so I think people are very happy that it's short.
And, of course, short election campaign, as you say, the big winners are the people because they don't have to endure a long, drawn-out and tedious campaign. You, though, you're standing as an independent. I guess there's some sort of, you could have been taken by surprise. No doubt the Rockcliffe government wants to make the most of having just a short campaign.
Yes, well, it was certainly a surprise in the sense that God's call for me to actually stand was a very short thing. I was sitting with my pastor and we were talking about the needs of the state and needing to bring some balance into policies, and one thing led to another, and I ended up putting up my hand, which I've certainly considered in the past, but it's very different being on the other end of a forum where I've obviously in the past run a candidates forum to get our views across from the candidates, but I was on the other side of that over the last week or two, and so it's been good.
Okay, what are the biggest issues that you're campaigning on, or that the people that you've been door knocking, doing your campaigning, what are the biggest issues that are attracting attention?
Well, the top three, which are probably similar across the country, are health, housing, and cost of living pressures. And we've got a very ageing population here in Tasmania, and a lot of very bad indicators in terms of some of the more common diseases like cancers, etc. So there's a huge, unrest in terms of waiting times for elective surgery, waiting times to see specialists, and even in the emergency departments, I think the average wait time is about 9 hours. And so this has been going on for many years. And the people I talk to, those are the three key areas. Housing is a huge issue because we've got over 4,000 on state housing waiting lists. We've got vacancy rates very low, particularly in Hobart. I think it's like 0.7%, and I think it's just over 1 in Launceston. So there's very hard to get into the rental market, very hard to get state housing if you're on that list. And so what we're seeing is an overflow of people needing to live on the streets pretty much. So across from where I live in Launceston, there's basically a tent city that's formed because people have got nowhere else to go. And going and talking to them and hearing their stories, it's very sobering because a lot of them are just average Joe blogs, some of them families, and they can't compete in this market for housing particularly.
And when you've got a tent city, in some sense, that's the definition of a crisis point. Is it just Launceston, or are there other towns, cities, communities throughout Tasmania that are dealing with the same sort of issue that you're aware?
Yeah, it is right around Tasmania, Neil. And so this is my main focus on my campaign, is to say the priorities need to be obviously those things, housing and health and lowering cost of living pressures. But in saying that, I'm saying we should be putting the stadium, which is estimated, it's probably going to be over $1 billion spend in Hobart's Macquarie Point. I'm saying no to the stadium. That's my main message. And let's prioritise these things which are in our face. And so I'm saying it's the wrong time and it's the wrong place, because Macquarie Point's got a lot of significance to the cultural Indigenous community, the convict community, because that's where the first connection with Lieutenant Governor Collins happened at that point, and also right next door the RSL. They've got their cenotaph there, and it's right next door. It's a very sensitive area in Macquarie Point, which is on the waterfront in Hobart. So I'm saying wrong time, wrong place, and it's a wrong priority.
Is this a divisive issue around the stadium? Because, we're only a day or two away from the official launch of a Tasmania AFL team. There can be some national pride or some state pride in a team like that, colours and logos and memberships and such things. But the actual stadium itself, is this a contentious point? Is Tasmania divided over the stadium?
It is very divided, and it's sad, but there's always been a north-south divide, and this is just, in my view, it seems to be accentuating that. Now, the north has always been the centre of AFL in Tasmania. We get a lot bigger crowds in the north at UTAS Stadium, which, in my mind, is a much better prospect because it's going to be upgraded anyway. It's going to end up with 27,000 seats, whereas the new one is only going to have 23,000. Much more central to all Tasmanians, closer to the mainland, much more room to expand. So it seems like the AFL has basically said this is the way or the highway. There's no other way of doing it. But I think maybe with an election and with some fresh blood in Parliament, it might be a chance to turn that around and say, hey, let's look at this from a different viewpoint, renegotiate, because I don't think the terms that we have got with the AFL are very good for Tasmania.
Mark, let me ask you about some of the contentious issues around Christians and voting in Tasmania, because there's all sorts of moves around parental rights, around the thought that, Christians can be criminalised, parents can be criminalised, around issues of sexuality and gender and such things. Have you been campaigning on some of those issues? Have you been getting any feedback from Tasmanian residents?
Well, the average person in the street, it's not a contentious issue. Many of them are not even aware of it. But like I said, most of the issues that I've been focusing on are health and cost of living and housing. But certainly the conversion bill, which we have got before our Parliament, and we're seeing other states like Victoria have already gone ahead that way, in my view, they are dangerous bills. They squash the freedom of speech, freedom of conscience and religion, and they also reduce the level of choice that people have when they're seeking help and seeking to negotiate some of the difficult questions they have, particularly in young people as they're growing up. So I think it's a negative thing, and I've said in the different forums that I've been involved in, I've said I want to see that squashed. I think we're heading in a dangerous direction because, I don't think it's good for individuals. I don't think it's good for society.
Now, you're standing as an independent. Let me just ask you for your honest, objective viewpoint, perhaps, maybe not taking favourites both sides. You've got Premier Jeremy Rockcliffe, you've got Opposition Leader Rebecca White. Are they popular amongst the people you're talking about? Are there some strengths or weaknesses you can identify?
From what I'm hearing, and again, this is objective, I'm not putting my 2 cents in here, but I think there is a bit of people have their noses out of joint with the major parties. And so I think the independents, the minor parties, are going to do very well in this election. I don't think the Liberals will be able to form a majority government, so they will need to find somebody else to serve with, and that will either be minor parties or independents. Now, obviously, I'd hope one of those would be me. In the natural, my chances are very slim. First time I've actually ever put my hand up. My profile is not huge. It might be fairly good in the Christian community, but in the general community, not so. But again, I'm following what I believe is the Lord's call. I would certainly not put my hand up if I didn't feel the Lord giving me direction to do so. So my campaign has been very different because I've had one message, no stadium, and nobody else has had a message on their signs or their publicity like I have. So I suppose I stand out in that way. And taking that single issue simply because there was no time to really focus on multiple issues when you've only got a month to campaign in.
There's been a bit of research that's been going on from Christian organisations who are interested in identifying where candidates and where parties stand. What have you been recommending to Christians to inform themselves about how they might cast a vote on Saturday?
Yeah, so Neil, there are, as always, very good websites to go and get information on parties, but also on individual candidates as well. So I suppose the easiest thing I would suggest is to go to christianvalues.org.au, christianvalues.org.au. They've got a PDF that you can print off, and that gives you a bit of an overview of where the parties sit on different issues that are important to Christians. But then at the bottom of that form, there's also some links to a couple of other websites. One is Vote Wisely, which Sharon Cousins has put together, and also the ACL Tas Votes website. And they go more into detail into individual candidates and where they sit on specific issues that they've asked in a survey. So if you stick with christianvalues.org.au, you'll get the whole three of them in that PDF that they've got on that website. So that's what I'd suggest.
So for Christians in Tasmania looking for a little bit of guidance around parties and candidates, christianvalues.org.au and also the ACL site, tasvotes.org.au, and then there's the Vote Wisely site. Just good getting your insights here. Mark Brown, former Australian Christian Lobby State Director for Tasmania, standing as an independent in the seat of Bass on the northeast coastal region of Tasmania. Mark Brown, thank you so much for your insights today on 2020.
Thanks, Neil. It's been great to be with you.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.